Okay. Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I have the honors today to basically give the final presentation of all the sessions that we had. We do have one session left after this presentation, which is the live site clinic. So don't leave the Mexico yet. But I'm here today to talk about SEO in general. So I'll give an introduction into SEO, and I'll dive a little bit deeper into how you can make up your own strategy, your own SEO strategy. We picked a nice clickbait title for the presentation, "The Road to Position Zero." I'll get back to that saying in a second. So these are the topics I wanna discuss today. First, the introduction into SEO. So I'll just walk through what SEO in general is, what are the main core areas to focus on. I'll explain the advantages and disadvantages of SEO. I'll also walk you through where SEO came from as a marketing channel, where it is today, and what we believe are future elements. And the last topic is more of a deep dive into the SEO strategy. So let's dive right in. The first question to answer, of course, is what is SEO? Simply put, SEO is a marketing discipline to focused on achieving organic visibility in search engines. With that, it's the counterpart of paid advertising, where you pay to get the listings in the search engine. Here, it's more that we try to win or earn, so to speak, these placements. The goal is to improve rankings, so organic rankings, organic traffic, and to increase brand awareness. Regarding the goals, I will dive into later on in the presentation, but in general, these are, let's say, the three main goals that we have. It's applicable in all search engines. So I know Google is probably on the top of everybody's mind when we talk about SEO, but it also applies to Bing, so Microsoft search engine. Amazon is nothing else than a search engine for products, whereas YouTube is a search engine for videos, and App Stores is nothing else than a search engine for apps. And with each of these search engines, there's an algorithm behind it, which I was always going to say manipulate, but it's probably too negative. An algorithm that you can work with to try to basically get the highest rankings within each of those search engines. It's an interdisciplinary channel with a lot of touch points in a company. We notice that as an agency, but I guess if you're an in-house SEO, then this is even more relevant. So you probably have to do with management when we talk about reporting. When there's, let's say, an in-house editorial team, there's a lot of touch points there. If you want to change something technical on the website, then you'll probably have to deal with the development team. I guess even when we talk about maybe product management, if new products go live, then this is also another, let's say, touch point where I would say an SEO influence definitely makes sense. So of course that makes it a big challenge, especially for in-house SEOs, because there's a lot of touch points if you want to do this well. And lastly, in my opinion, quite nice, in SEO, there's technical and creative elements. When you talk about maybe page speed topics where you want to compress JavaScript resources, then of course this is a clearly technical topic. But there's also creative elements when we maybe talk about creating content, setting up maybe an interesting campaign for off-page SEO. All of the topics I'll get to later, but it's quite nice that there are these technical elements, but also creative elements to SEO that makes it, for me, a fun industry to work in. Before we dive into SEO, I guess it's really important to point out that everybody that's studied marketing or have done anything during their studies with marketing have learned a lot about push channels, right? It's also the same for me. We only learned about, let's say, television ads, direct marketing channels, maybe even banners next to the highway. All that stuff was being taught, and it's a really pushy way of let's say, promoting your brand. It's just showing to potential customers, here's my product, it's good because this and this and this, please buy it. Completely different approach than SEO. This is, as we call it, a pull channel, where people add a particular question or a demand, or they have a need into the search box, and we as a company have an opportunity to provide an answer there. So it's the complete opposite of these push channels. And before you focus on SEO, it's important to understand that difference. In SEO, there are four main areas that we focus on. So generally, you start with a strategy, and the strategy is understanding what is of interest of your customer. If you know that, then you can define the right strategy. I won't discuss the strategy in depth now because that's part of this presentation later on. The second part is technical optimization. So if you've defined a strategy, then you need to ensure that you provide a good user experience for your users. So for the people that land on your website, not only for the users, but I would say also for the search engines. You don't want to. Search engines use crawlers, use bots that basically crawl the whole website, and you don't want to have them waste a lot of time on pages that are not really relevant for search engines and are not really relevant for your users. So let's say in broad terms, you have to create a good experience for your users, but also for the search engines themselves. The third part is content. So if you found out in your strategy what is of interest of your customers, and of course you need to cover this on your website. That's where content comes in. So you need to provide the right content depending on the context. So whether that's I don't know, informational text, whether that's a video, whether that's an image, whether that's an infographic, whatever else, you need to provide the right content. And that's what the third pillar is all about. And the last part, off page, I usually consider or explain it as the PR department of SEO, where it's all about sharing your content online. So if we have, let's say, a particular post up, then of course we also want people to see it. If we would preferably want to have people link back to it. Maybe a more practical example, one of our clients, HelloFresh, they write a lot about recipes. They publish a lot of recipes. Of course, it's a perfect signal to Google from an authority and from a relevance standpoint that food bloggers link back to those recipes. It's a signal of, okay, apparently these recipes are really good. A lot of people are writing about it. A lot of people are linking back to it. And that's what off-page is all about, getting these high quality backlinks. And what's important before I move on is that each of these four areas need to be well optimized to survive in a competitive market. So it's not the case that if we just write a lot of content and the technical foundation is really not there, then the whole SEO game will be difficult. So it's the other way around as well. So we could have a perfect setup from a technical standpoint, but we don't have any content on the website, and Google or users will not really be helpful to them. So we need to ensure that all four areas are optimized quite well. Yeah, this is more as a side note. So strategy and technical optimization is usually something that you do on a project base. So you set it up once, and then you can use this for a longer period of time. It's not the case that if you do it once, you don't have to touch it again. So especially if we talk about strategy, people's search behaviors change. Maybe you're introducing new products that you didn't really take into account when you set up the strategy. So it's more of a dynamic process. But in general, you could say that these are more project-oriented types of optimization. So you do this once, and then you can build upon that for a longer period of time. Whereas content and off-page are topics that you continuously need to work on. So these are more processes that you need to set up inside your company or together with an agency. Content, if you publish content, then usually it's the next step will be tracking. Does this really work? Does this really help our users? Can we maybe fine-tune the content a little bit? So you keep working on it. And whereas with off-page, I guess it's safe to say that you never have enough good qualitative backlinks. So it's a continuous project that you need to work on. Competitors are working on it as well. So these are more, let's say, process-oriented areas of responsibility. Done. Here, final point of discussion in terms of these four pillars. I guess it's on the top of everybody's mind that's working on websites that's trying to optimize those websites is user experience. We of course want to provide a good user experience to users. Google also recognizes this, and they this year they introduced the so-called web vitals, which is a way for Google to basically address the user experience topic. So what they're going to do, and they're probably going to start with this in 2020, when is not really sure yet, but they're going to add 3 metrics to their algorithm, which they're going to evaluate. And these are highly related to user experience, one of which is first input delay, which basically means if you click on an element or you interact with something on a website, how long does it take for the interaction to take place in a sense. If you click on a link, when does something happen on a page? The second is the largest contentful paint. Basically means how long does it take for the largest element on the on the page to load. And the last one is cumulative layout shift, probably also something that everybody has experienced. You land on a web page, you start reading the content, and after 2 seconds, the whole page basically starts shifting because a banner shows up or because an image is starting to being loaded into the page. Of course, really annoying. You're already have through the content or the first paragraph, and now you have to start over again. And that's what we call a layout shift. And as it's negative for the user experience, Google will measure the shift, and the higher or the larger the shift, basically, the more negative this will impact your web vital score. We talked a lot about now our own SEO efforts, so the strategy, the technical part, content, and off-page. But these are not the only factors that would impact any ranking developments that we might have. So we're also competing with competitors that have the same areas of focus. So if I were to now start a small fashion shop, then of course I have to compete with, let's say, About You, with Zalando, with Peek & Cloppenburg, all those fashion retailers out there. And these, of course, influence my own rankings. And next to that, I also have to deal with search engine developments. So Google is, of course, tweaking a lot with their algorithm. I guess the Web Vitals example is a good example there, where they constantly try to change and try to improve their ranking algorithms. Another good example here is if you've worked in the travel industry, then I guess it's no surprise that Google has changed a lot there since the last, let's say, 3 to 4 years. So in the meantime, we now have Google Hotels, we have Google Flights. Google is really stealing, in my opinion, a lot of real estate there. And of course, that has a huge influence on where you're ranking and how much traffic you're going to drive to your website. So these are the 3 main areas to keep in mind there. Then, not my favorite topic, but we have to discuss some disadvantages of SEO, because there are some. First up is that SEO can take a long time. So it's especially if you like to compare it to, let's say, paid advertising. In this example, paid advertising would be the sprint, and search engine optimization would be the marathon, right? It just takes longer. You need to set up the strategy. You need to get the processes defined, and then it will still take a while for Google to recognize you as a let's say, an online entity or as an authority before you really start getting your rankings. So it just takes a lot more time, and that's something you have to keep in mind when you focus on SEO. Then the winner takes it all. I guess this is also something that we all recognize. If we type something into Google, we only check the first result page. In my opinion, I barely ever click the second or third result page. If I can't find my answer on the first result page, then I always assume that my search is wrong. So everything happens there. Everybody clicks on those results, and I guess even only the first couple of results on a search engine. So if you're not being listed there, then it's really difficult to drive traffic to your website. So the concept of the winner takes it all really applies here. And ranking on a second, third, fourth page is basically not competing at all. Then there are a lot of non-transparent requirements with SEO. So the algorithm in and of itself is secret. So Google doesn't really tell us what the algorithm what the ranking factors are. We've learned them along the way, and Google has from time to time did acknowledge some of them, but we don't really know to what extent which of those ranking factors are involved, and that makes it, of course, more difficult. They also keep tweaking, and I mentioned that before, and I guess the Web Vitals example plays a role here again. They keep tweaking their algorithm. They constantly roll out updates. If you follow the SEO news, then you basically every month you get an update saying, okay, Google rolled out a new update, and you hear some websites complain, some websites are happy because they got more visibility, but Google keeps tweaking on their algorithm. Then there's also a transparency of effects and the time period. I guess the time period relates to my comment about search engine optimization being a marathon. It just takes longer. But the transparency of effects is definitely an issue. Even if you do everything right, that doesn't guarantee that you will get a particular ranking position. So even if you have a perfect strategy is defined, if you have the technical setup is there, you've produced beautiful content, you got a couple of good backlinks, it doesn't really mean that you will rank first. And if you've ever heard, let's say, an agency quote you, or an agency giving, or a freelancer, whoever else works in the SEO, telling you, if you do this and this and this, or if you give me this budget, we will rank on one. I would highly recommend not to work with those people, because that's the thing with SEO. You can never really tell what position you're going to land on. We know what the right setup is, and I would also highly recommend to follow that, but you cannot really guarantee a particular ranking position, and that's something to keep in mind. And the last point is there's no support from Google. So if you, let's say, lost a lot of visibility during one of these updates, there's no help desk that you can call saying, hey, Google, what's up? I just lost my rankings. There's no support there. They do try to get more involved. So John Mueller is a lot active on social media. He has the Webmaster Hangouts. Martin Split is another Google, let's say, spokesperson that does a lot of videos, webinars. So they try to help out the community, but in the end, there's no support from Google here. And then here, an important point, that the organic results have less and less real estate within the search results. So here I typed in running shoes. I like to run. Where first up in the left screenshot is above default. So that's the results I'm seeing first. It's just ads. Google is, of course, earning a lot of money with these ads. So that's why they're being shown prominently there. And only when I scroll down, the first organic results show up. Of course, it depends on what kind of search query I type in. But in general, as I said, Google earns a lot of money here. So that's why they, of course, have this prominent placement of ads. And that's also something to keep in mind. Nonetheless, the organic results still have good click-through rates. So people recognize the ads are being paid for, the organic results are earned. So usually they find these more trustworthy. But yeah, they're being pushed down definitely by ads. Then the fun part, the advantages of SEO. So, and there are a lot as well. In general, SEO can be and is often the cheapest channel in the long run. So if you can compare PPC to SEO, then I guess the best comparison to make here is that PPC is like renting a house. You can move in right away, and as long as you pay your rent every month, you can basically keep the apartment. You can do whatever you want. SEO is more like building a house. The investment in the beginning is higher. You have to put more money into it, but in the long run, it's the more, let's say, sustainable investment. If you pay your interest rates, if you pay off your mortgage, the value of the property will remain the same. And in SEO, the comparison is the same. So in the long run, it's definitely the more cheaper channel. And that also brings us a little bit to the PPC or the cost per click topic. So these are on the rise. I'm no paid advertising expert myself, but I know that in some areas you pay $80 to $90 or even $100 per click in some areas, and that's of course makes the argument for SEO much more interesting. So especially if in your field the PPC costs are really out of control, then a good argument can be made for SEO. And then my favorite benefit of SEO is that it covers all the phases of the buying journey and we like to use the AIDA funnel. It's a marketing concept. I know there's much more fancy ways with a longer process, but this short version helps to explain what I want to explain here. There's different goals along the AIDA funnel. Basically, what it explains is where am I as a customer, and what are the phases that I walk through as a customer before I actually buy a product. So in the attention phase, I need something. I'm not really sure if there's a product or a service behind it. I just have a lot of questions. In the interest phase, I'm getting more aware that there's a product for it, but still it's a lot about getting information. The desire phase, I know the products, and maybe I've heard about some brands, I'm comparing the stuff there. And in the action phase, it's more about the transaction itself. And SEO basically follows all the steps here. The reason why SEO is not completely to the left is because there's also searches out there that don't really have any search volume. If it's a service that's completely new, if it's a product that's completely new, maybe take Bitcoins before they, of course now it's a topic with a lot of search volume, everybody's writing about it, there's a lot of companies out there that work with Bitcoins, but when it was first introduced, it had barely any search volume, right? So it takes some time there, and in that case, SEO is not yet the relevant channel. But in general, it covers all these phases along the customer journey, which is different with a lot of these other channels, right? So if you talk about marketplace optimization in general, it's more in a transactional atmosphere. Display ads is, of course, much more in the attention and interest phase. You can work with these channels in different settings, but in general, this is usually the setup that a lot of companies follow, and that's more, let's say, best practice. Then the development of SEO, because a lot has changed there. In all honesty, it used to be seen as a little bit of a nerd in the basement that's tweaking around on the website a little bit, and now we rank on position 1. Perfect, job well done. But now it's actually a recognized marketing discipline. I think also if you're a good SEO and if you have experience in the field, it's not really that difficult to find a job. There's a lot of vacancies out there. So in that sense, SEO has come a long way. It also used to be that SEO almost was synonymous to spam. So spam used to work quite well. Got a couple of examples here. The best laptops in the market, our laptops have the lowest price and the best quality, the best laptop, blah, blah, blah. Not really interesting to read. It's just completely focused on getting the keyword best laptops in there as much as possible so that the search engine sees the keyword. Not optimized for the user, wouldn't work today, but did work quite well in the past. The example on the right, web hosting, it's a form of cloaking. It used to work also quite well, especially in the beginning. White text on a white background, you wouldn't see it as a user, but they basically posted web hosting on there as often as they could. And all the way, let's say in the past, Google would think, okay, these guys write a lot about web hosting. They probably know their shit. Let's start ranking them on position 1. Of course, completely nonsense in this case, but it used to work that way. And the one on the bottom is more the off-page spam or link spam. It's still being done, still being used a lot, especially in certain countries and in certain areas. Here, it's a German example, but it was a threat for the Eurovision Song Festival. And this person, which is called Snippets, also quite funny, wrote a post where he said that he basically stopped using his browser game a little bit to watch the Eurovision Song Festival, and he really enjoyed it. Basically there to put the link in, no real benefit, no thematical relevance there, and only try to, let's say, build as much links for his browser game or his company or whatever else was relevant there. Used to work, doesn't work anymore. General rule of thumb now is put the user first. If you're doing it right for the user, then you're doing it right overall. Where I would say focus on quality instead of quantity, and that applies to all fields. So it applies to content. Focus on creating, let's say, a couple of really good content pieces instead of as much as you can. Where it used to be the case that you would basically write or create a landing page for each keyword. Now you would try to look more on, let's say, what is a content topic, and write about that and go more into detail and depth about that topic. Same applies to backlinks. You don't focus on getting as much as you can. Don't focus on those stupid web directories that used to work perfectly. Just focus on getting a couple of good qualitative backlinks that are relevant for your company, that are relevant for your niche, and then you're doing a good job. Let's say a look in the future. It's already quite relevant. Voice search, I gave a talk about that yesterday. It's of course relevant at every conference. People are talking about it. People are writing about it in magazines. Where I would say definitely distinguish when you read about this, and a lot of people don't distinguish these topics. To distinguish between voice search and voice usage. Voice usage is completely something different than from voice search. Where voice usage could be something like setting an alarm, setting a timer by using your voice. It's perfect. You can use it for it. I use it a lot, but it's not related to voice search. Voice search in general, for me, is nothing else than speaking instead of typing. So for the SEO game in general, nothing really changes there. But if you do find a topic interesting, if you think, okay, there are definitely situations where my audience or where my customers could be looking through voice or using their voice to look for queries that could be relevant for us, then focus on featured snippets. These are the text boxes or lists or tables that you see listed above on the search engine result page. And those are elements that the search engines read out a lot when people look for certain things. Then the last topic regarding voice search, and then I will stop talking about it. is by 2020, 50% of all searches across the internet will be voice-based. It's a quote that's been going around a lot. Everybody's written about it, but it's completely false. It's being misquoted, misused. In the past, I believe the quote came from an engineer at Baidu who said it in relation to images and voice in general, also only focused on the Asian market, which, as we all know, is completely different from Western markets, especially in terms of internet usage. So if you read this quote, just ignore it. The second topic, which is getting more and more relevant, is structured data. In general, structured data is a really good way of giving more information about elements on your page to Google. So for example, in this case, a product, the Google Home smart speaker, and you see the snippet. It's a little bit below here. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but it's being shown here, where you can see that through structured data, Walmart has been able to give more information to the search engine, and the search engine is displaying that within the Google results. So what they've been able to do is they said, okay, this is the Google Home. This is a product of ours. It has a 4.4 rating, 510 reviews. It has a price range of this and this. And you could even say we have it in stock, or it's sold out, or whatever else. You could give all this information to the search engine by using structured data. And it's a perfect way of getting these, let's say, beautiful visualizations within the search. And with that, especially if your competitors are not using them, you could stand out from them. If they are using them, I would highly recommend using them as well, because otherwise, of course, you're losing a little bit of visibility there, because they definitely stand out more than the more regular results. And then if you if you combine the two worlds here, so voice search and structured data, then there's a new interesting structured data markup that's pending. It's called Speakable. And with that, what you can do is you could tag, let's say, a paragraph of text on your page that you've optimized for voice. So you're telling the search engine these 3 sentences, for example, are written in an easy way or easy to be read aloud. And that's what you can use the Speakable markup for. At the moment, it's only being used in the USA. In, I believe, only the news verticals, so news outlets, are able to use it. But I guess it's safe to say that whenever this Google finds, okay, this is working quite well, that this is also will be rolled out to other countries and other industries as well. Okay, then the SEO strategy. So beginning, I showed you the slide of the strategy, technical part, content, and off-page. And now we'll basically dive into the SEO and how you can define an SEO strategy. What it all comes down to is, if we talk about an SEO strategy, asking yourself the questions, what do our customers look for? Because they type in keywords in Google search, and all of these keywords, everything they add, and people are genuinely quite honest to, let's say, a search engine, stand for needs, questions, problems that they have. And for each of those, we have the possibility for us as a company to answer them. And before I dive in with a more practical example, it's important to know that everything that people type into Google can be, let's say, assigned with a particular type. In general, we assign 3 different types. So we have transactional keywords. Examples are keywords with like have buy or order. So for example, if somebody looks for an iPhone 8 discount or buying a TV or something like that, of course, it's really transactionally focused. Navigational searches are usually searches that are related to, let's say, either they want to go to a particular website, they want to go to a particular brand. A lot of people are just lazy and type in, let's say, NewYorkTimes.com in Google instead of typing it in the taskbar. It's a clear navigational search. It could also be something, if people look for a slogan, just do it. They either look for the video of Shia LaBeouf or they probably look for for Nike. Informational searches are, as self-explanatory here, are more focused on asking questions: where, how, what, whom. And examples could be how to tie a tie, for example. It sounds maybe a little bit stupid, but if I sell ties or if I sell suits, then of course this is a really relevant question to be adding to my website and to basically providing an answer for. It must be said here that for each of these keyword types, there's a lot of mixture among them. So there could be keywords that are transactional, but also informational. Keywords that are informational and navigational, etc. So these keywords, and a lot of times, definitely mix up. But in general, we assign them these 3 keyword types. And now the practical example. The example I've listed here, because this is a topic that I needed to do this year as well, is buying a kitchen. And if you're buying a kitchen, then you're asking yourself a lot of questions. And I added the example here because it really highlights how I walk through the whole AIDA funnel. So here, a screenshot from a really nice tool called Answer the Public. You type in a keyword. What the tool does is it shows you questions that are related to that keyword. So in this case, a kitchen, and people are asking themselves a lot of questions surrounding the topic of kitchens. And if I have anything to do with kitchens, if I sell kitchens, if I'm a magazine online that writes about kitchens, and these are questions I would like to be answering on my website. And this is in general how I walk through my whole customer journey. So at the beginning, okay, I realized I probably need a kitchen in my apartment. So I start asking myself questions like, okay, but when should I actually buy a kitchen? How much time should I schedule for that? How do I choose it? All those things, right? I'm not really focused on the actual purchase of a kitchen yet, but I ask myself a lot of questions already. And if I sell kitchens, then this is the first touch point that I could have with a potential customer. Then if I move a little bit further along the journey and I, let's say, end up in the interest phase, I've also already thought about maybe what type of tiles or what type of flooring I want. Then maybe I'm asking myself questions like which kitchen goes with oak parquet or which kitchen goes with gray tiles or whatever else. Again, perfect opportunity for a company that sells kitchens to provide me with content there. Explain to me what are do's and don'ts, what kind of colors can I combine. And then, okay, I've learned a lot about kitchens again. I move on into my customer journey, maybe end up interest desire phase. I found out, okay, there's different brands of kitchens. There's Nobilia in Germany, there's Nolte, there's even IKEA. IKEA even sells kitchens. What are these type of kitchens? What are Nobilia kitchens? Why are they good? What's a Nolte kitchen? Why are these IKEA kitchens so cheap, etc.? For all of the searches, if I sell one of these kitchens, then of course I need to provide, let's say, category content for people that are interested in topic. Search like Nobilia kitchens. Show me the kitchens. What's a Nobilia kitchen made of? Why do they have a good quality if they have it? You can create a beautifully category page surrounding that topic. And then, okay, looked at a lot of different kitchens. I finally, let's say, made the decisions for one. In this case, as an example, the Nolte kitchen. And then I look for really specific landing pages, right? I might be looking for something like a Nolte kitchen with glass fronts or a Nolte kitchen without appliances because for some reason I have them, right? So it's really transactionally focused product content. I just want to see the particular Nolte kitchen that has a glass front or that has no appliances or whatever else. So I guess this is a really good example of, for a company that sells kitchens, but this applies to every other company out there as well. Throughout the customer journey, there's several touch points that you could interact or that you could provide content with and have a touch point with your potential customer. How do you find these questions? And that's, of course, a relevant question to be asking there. And the answer there is a keyword strategy, defining a keyword strategy or a content strategy in this case, doing keyword research. And what we always do in the company is we start with the status quo analysis. So we do a brainstorming. In this case, again, maybe the example of kitchens. What are questions that people might be asking? Or what type of kitchens are there? Just get as much input on the topic as you can. Also look at competitors. So what are they doing well on their website? What are they probably not doing so well? Use everything as input. And then we probably got several lists and we use that for our keyword research phase. So we try to search for additional keywords, search for combinations, synonyms, everything that we can come up with by using tools. And I'll get to the tools in a second. And if we then have a list of all the keywords, preferably already clustered, let's say thematically, then we move into the data aggregation phase, where you pull in data like search volume, maybe something like conversion probability, which relates back to the keyword types. So of course, a transactional keyword is much more likely to convert than a navigational or informational keyword. And that's information that you can already assign to the keyword. So you already know, okay, this is a keyword cluster where people are more likely to buy, so maybe let's focus on that first. And as the last point is pulling in current ranking positions. So it's really good to get some sort of idea of a status quo, to know, okay, this is the set of keywords that we identified, this is how we rank for them. So you just get a better idea of the potential out there. The next step is prioritization. You can do it based on several points. Depends a little bit on the company or your goals. You could do it according to turnover. So what are the products that we earn the most with at the moment? And let's prioritize those first because it's already working. It's let's say a proof concept. You could also do it based on relevance. So what are the most relevant products or services in our industry at the moment? Or maybe you look at something like search volume. In that case, it also, of course, implies a certain relevance if you prioritize the keyword clouds or keyword clusters with more search volume above the others. Or you could do it based on potential. Depends a little bit on which area you want to go for. Then we end up in the mapping phase. We have our keyword sets. We have all the data that goes with it. And then we need to map that with the current page structure. It could be that we already have some landing pages online that cover some of the topics. It could be that we need to create new landing pages. Everything like that you find out during the mapping phase. And then the last step is, I would say, more as an optional topic. You could calculate potential based on everything that you've done before. I say optional. If you don't need it, I would leave it out, because I mean, then it's just wasted time. But if you say you need to maybe convince internal stakeholders, you need to convince upper management of a particular SEO project that you want to follow, then it helps to do this potential analysis. You know your keyword set because you've defined that in your keyword research. You know the search volume, so you know the amount of people that look for those keywords. Then of course you can also calculate a potential traffic. So you could basically define several use cases. What if we land on position 1? What's an average click-through rate for position 1? How much traffic can I expect? What's that for position 2? What's that for position 3, etc. And then you could even work with averages to get some sort of idea of how much potential there is for your keyword set. We just spoke a lot about data and getting these keywords, and there's different ways how you can get to this data and keywords. First, I would recommend working with internal data. If you've connected your Google Search Console to your website property, then perfect. Download this keyword list, try to work with that. Also look at internal searches. I guess internal searches are always a good way or to start, because if people have to look for it with an internal search, then it's probably not covered well enough on your website, because why would they even have to search for it on your website? So also look at those, check your inventory. It's always a surprise to me, and it happens to clients of ours as well, that you can see that they have, let's say, a particular product set that they don't cover on their website, or the other way around, that there's landing pages on the website with products that they don't even sell. So also look at your inventory there. Tools, there's a lot of tools out there. I have a separate slide on that, but there's several keyword tools that you can work with to do the research. There's but SEO tools, so more of these all-round tools like an Ahrefs or a SEMrush, more expensive, but they also provide a good insight here, especially if you want to focus on competitor analysis. Tools like Ahrefs and SEMrush really give a good idea of the keywords that they rank for, how they perform in certain, let's say, with certain landing pages. So that helps with the competitor analysis, but also really focus on, let's say, something like Google Suggest. If you type in a keyword and Google adds keywords in their suggest function to it, then Google is relating those keywords to what you've searched or you wanted to search for. So it could also be relevant for your landing page. Same applies to Google related searches. If you type in a keyword or you type in a question and Google shows related searches, then these are definitely, or in most cases, relevant for that particular keyword that you typed in. So also think about maybe adding those to your content, adding those to your landing page. And then the last topic is look at your competitors. So, and then, yeah, direct competitors definitely, but don't only focus on direct competitors. If I'm, for example, if I'm active in, let's say, the insurance field, then I'm not only competing with insurance companies. I'm also competing with comparison portals. I'm also competing with maybe blogs or other news outlets that write a lot about insurance or financial topics. So keep that in mind, and also look at how they are structuring the website, how they are structuring the content. Yeah. Then the keyword tools themselves, I focus on keyword tools here because we talk about defining a strategy, which, I mean, keywords play an important role there. Definitely work with Google Ads. It's free. You can definitely use it for the research phase. Whether or not you will get accurate search volume data is dependent on if you also have ads running with your account. So that depends a little bit. If you don't have any ads running, then you'll get these ranges. I believe it's 100 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000, etc. So it doesn't really give you any idea of the actual search volume. It just gives you these ranges. Nonetheless, even if that's the case, then it could really help out with the research phase. Hypersuggest is free to a certain degree, only until a couple of searches. So if you just want to check a couple, then that's perfectly doable with Hypersuggest. Ubersuggest has been bought by Neil Patel a couple of years ago, I believe. Also completely free to use. It can be a bit slow, it could be a little buggy, but it's a free tool. So if you don't want to spend anything on a keyword tool, then definitely work with that. Answer the public. I showed the screenshot before. Type in a particular keyword and get questions that are related to that keyword. It's free up to 5 searches a day, I believe. So yeah, definitely worth checking out. And then 2 of my favorites, one of which is Keyword Toolio. I work with it a lot just to get a better idea of let's say, questions people might be asking surrounding a particular topic, but also just doing plain, simple keyword research. And the last one, which is also more of a suite tool, is Keyword Finder. So it's both are relatively cheap. And if you want to focus more on keyword research, I would highly recommend spending a little bit money on one of these tools. The good thing about Keyword Finder, and I'm not trying to make any advertisements here, is that they also offer other products within their pool. And I believe for the same price, you can also get access to those. You can have a SERP checker there. You can do some, I believe, even some off-page analysis. So it's definitely a little bit broader than Keyword Toolio. And the good thing about Keyword Finder there as well is that you can also get specific search volume data for cities. So if you have a more, let's say, a local presence, I believe you can also do this with Keyword Toolio, by the way, but if you have a local presence, then you can also get the local search volume for, let's say, a particular area or a city. Then we talked a lot about the strategy, and if we talk about strategy, then we should also already talk about goals, because before you define, let's say, a strategy, then you need to think what kind of goals can we achieve. Overall, in SEO, there's 6 goals. So there's reach, traffic, engagement, leads, sales, and brand awareness. Those are the 6 main goals that we focus on. Reach and traffic, especially reach, you can measure with, let's say, the amount of impressions that you're getting, the number of keyword rankings that you have, even the keyword distribution. So how many rankings do I have on position 0? How much do I have in top 3, top 5, top 10, etc. I always really like to work with that as well. If you have a lot of keywords that are currently ranking from position 20 to 30, then you know there's a lot of potential there. You've already made it, just let's say the second result page, maybe by tweaking the content, maybe by focusing a little bit on backlinks there or whatever else, you could push them into the first result page. And of course, that's going to really drive your traffic. Visibility development is, of course, a good metric for reach. Number of referring domains, mentions, those all work as KPIs to measure reach. And then traffic, plain old clicks to your website, maybe even split it per landing page, are good KPIs to measure how your traffic is developing. Also, maybe something like number of new users on your website. Yeah, both good KPIs to measure traffic. Engagement, yeah, it says a lot maybe also about the user experience, something that we discussed before. Could be page impressions per visit, dwell time, how long do they stay, bounce rate, although bounce rate is also always a tricky topic. So a high bounce rate doesn't really necessarily have to imply that there's a bad user experience. If somebody has a question, and if you answer that question completely on your landing page and they bounce back, then it doesn't mean that it's a negative experience that they had. So keep that in mind when you, let's say, measure bounce rate, or when you talk about the topic in and of itself. Other metrics are maybe clicks to your store or more transactional content. So the products that you have on your website, likes and shares, comments, video views are all really good metrics to measure engagement. And then leads and sales, I guess this is what it all comes down to in the end. So we will, of course, want to have people buy our products or sign up for our services. For leads, it's good to measure, let's say, the newsletter subscriptions that people sign up for, maybe requested phone calls or similar KPIs. Registration for test accounts. If you're an e-commerce website, then maybe something like people that added products to their wish list. It's also a really good lead indication. And then sales, plain old purchases, plain old orders. And then the last goal, brand awareness. I hear a lot from clients, or at least I've heard it several times, that it's difficult to measure brand awareness. I get that to a certain degree, but especially with all the tools that we have out there, we can definitely get an indication. So something like monthly search volume for a brand or for our own products is a really good way of getting an idea of how much people look for our brand, product, whatever, on a monthly basis. Is that increasing? Is that staying stable? Is it decreasing? All really good indications of how your brand awareness is developing. Increasing direct type-in traffic, so how many people are directly typing in your website into the browser. Of course, good indication, people are getting aware of your website. They don't even look for the products that you're selling, they directly go for your website. Increasing brand traffic, of course, fits in there as well. And then as a counterpart for the monthly search volume, you can also check something like Google Trends just to see how are my brand keywords developing over time. And that brings me to our takeaways. Keep in mind that if you focus on SEO, it takes a lot of patience. If we start working with clients, it's one of the first questions they ask: when can I see results? It just takes a while, and it's not really that clear. We cannot say or put let's say a fixed date on it. It just takes time for Google to recognize it. It takes time for content to be written, to be published, etc. It's just let's say a channel that requires a little bit more patience, but it's in most cases the most cost-effective marketing channel out there. In SEO, focus on your users and just don't focus too much on the search engine. If you're doing it well for your user, then in most cases you're doing it well for the search engine. So keep that in mind. And understand the difference between the different search intentions. So we have transactional searches, we have informational searches, navigational searches, and see how they blend into each other. Carry out keyword research, define your content strategy by doing that, and your topic planning. I see that's lacking with so many websites. They have a website online, but the actual strategy or the research part has completely been skipped. And without having a proper setting up a proper research and defining that strategy, you don't really know what pages you need on your website. You don't really know what people are actually looking for. So definitely focus on that. It's one of the topics that I guess a lot of companies still can gain a lot from. Set goals that you want to achieve and measure them with the KPIs that I just showed. And always monitor your SEO performance. You need to know what's happening. You also try to check your competitors, and also try to monitor the development within search engine. I guess that's a struggle for a lot. There's a lot of things changing there, a lot of things happening, but try to keep up to date with that. Something like the web vitals, the example I showed before. If you completely miss that topic and next year it started to become a ranking algorithm and you score really poorly, these are things that could surprise you. And of course, nobody likes surprises in that sense. So try to monitor what the search engine is doing and how it's developing. And that's it. That's it for the presentations today. But on the Mexico conference for us in general, we have another site clinic that's will start at 5. So in 10 minutes. It took a little longer than I expected.